What's going on, YouTube? Welcome back to the Get Live Podcast. So, as you all know, today is September 11th, and I guess that will mark probably one of the darkest days in U.S. history. As we all know, September 11th, 2001, America was attacked. 19 hijackers hijacked 4 planes and flew them into buildings, the Pentagon, and one crash landed in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. Bro, what do you remember about 9/11?
Initially?
Mm-hmm. You would have been, what, 3rd grade?
3rd grade,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. The main thing I remember, well, I guess, so in class, they didn't announce what had happened. We didn't learn that until we got home.
Mm-hmm.
But I just remember a bunch of people being signed out and leaving. After that, I remember seeing the replays of the plane crash into, I believe, the 2nd building.
Okay.
What about you? Because you was in 5th grade.
Yeah. I was in, my teacher was Mr. Holtz at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember they wheeled us into Miss Christopher, well, not wheeled us, but they brought us over to Miss Christopher's class, and they wheeled in the TV. And so they showed what was going on. And we were too busy talking to really pay much attention. And even when we looked at the TV, we were like, oh, wow, what's going on? But the magnitude of what really was happening, like, I think it was lost on a 10-year-old. You know, because we're all children, so it's like, oh, wow, there's something crazy happening, but we didn't think, almost 3,000 people died right then. The country was under attack. It was pretty crazy.
Yeah.
But, I don't know, I just wanted to take an episode out, like, with it being, September 11th, to just talk about what that day, I guess, meant to America, talk about some of the heroes of that day, and even some of the conspiracies, because there's a lot out there about all of it, I guess. Like, people saying the government was behind it, there were no planes, all kinds of things. So do you have, like, any exterior knowledge on 9/11? Like, any other stories? Because if not, I have a bit.
Yeah, I think that's going to be your specialty.
Okay. I guess I can start with some of the heroes of the day. So, September 11th, I will start off with, because I've watched just about every interview you can think of, anyone I can find. Just, I guess, hearing the human element of everything is kind of intriguing. So the first person I want to talk about is a man by the name of Brian Clark. He was definitely a hero on September 11th, even if it was only for one man, Stanley Prayaneth. So yeah, Brian Clark worked on the 84th floor of the South Tower, and he worked for Euro Brokers, actually. Is a company that deals with bank chains or something like that. Mm-hmm. Anyways, though, so while he's in his office, him and his co-workers, they hear a boom, which was the North Tower being hit. That was the tower that got hit first. And they see what they explain as fireballs raining down from the sky. And, he thought that a gas line bursted. Of course, we all know a building hit the plane at, I believe, 8:56. Mm-hmm. Anyways, so he tells everybody, in case there's a fire, go to the central corridor. And people went to the central corridor and decided to leave the building. And while they were leaving the building, again, South Tower hadn't been hit yet. While they're leaving the building, something comes over the PA telling everyone to go back into the building. And, our building is secure. Go back to your buildings and wait further instruction. Of course, some people did not listen, but others did. And sadly, that did cost people their lives. But the people in the South Tower, they didn't know what was going to happen next. So they're just like, hey, we're okay over here. We'll leave space for them to get out of the North Tower, because of course it's going to be crowded underneath the buildings. Mm-hmm. So, excuse me. And so they go back upstairs, and then boom, their building gets hit. And so everybody's panicking, everybody's freaking out. And Brian, who was the, what's the word I'm looking for? He was the volunteer fire marshal for his floor. He tells everybody, okay, he got, I think, 5 or 6 people. But he told everybody, hey, let's go downstairs. And he was leading them. So yeah, normally he would lead people down stairwell C, but instead he ended up going down stairwell A. So for anyone who doesn't know, when the plane hit the South Tower, it cut off 2 of the stairwells, B and C, leaving only A as the only intact stairwell. So no one could get down the other 2. Anyways, Brian, he led 5 or 6 of his co-workers downstairs, including a friend of his named Ron DiFrancesco. And while they're going down, a woman's coming upstairs, and she says, "Hey, don't go down there. It's nothing but fire. You can't get through." And so they're all standing there arguing. Well, not really arguing, but talking about what they're going to do next.
Mm-hmm.
And Brian hears a man yelling for help on the 81st floor. And he's like, "Hey, Ron, come with me." Ron DiFrancesco. He says, "Ron, come with me. I hear somebody. Let's go help them out." And Ron himself didn't hear anything, but he went with Brian. And this is where Stanley's story comes in. So Stanley Prayaneth, he's an East Indian guy born in Guyana, or from Guyana. And he worked for Fuji Bank on the 81st floor, I believe it was. And so he's on the phone with a woman. No, before that. Let's see. Oh, yeah. So Stanley and his people also heard the first tower being hit. And everybody started to leave. And I think, was it Susan Polillo? I think it might have been. But it was one of his female co-workers was really scared. He told her, "Just go ahead and go home. I'll take care of it." And they had all went downstairs on the elevator. And he was going to go home. But instead of going home, his friends kind of talked him back into, getting back on the elevator. They're going to go upstairs. They're like, "Hey, Stanley, man, you're not scared." And he said one of the things he remembers, like, distinctly, is everybody going back up in the elevator and knowing, at what he knew after what happened, that would be the last time he'd see them all again. So Stanley's in his office, and the woman calls from their Chicago office and tells him, "Hey, Stan, get out of the building." And of course, she doesn't really explain to him what's going on. By now, there's TVs and everything, or it's all over television that the North Tower had been hit. So he's like, "Wait, what's going on? Explain to me what's going on." And she said, "We don't have time. Get out." Just at that time, he looked out and he could see a plane headed towards their building. So this individual actually saw the plane, and it hit his floor. And he said he saw the U on the tail. It was a United flight. Mm-hmm. And he says he sees it, and he jumps under his desk at work and says, "Lord, I can't do this. You take over." He's a very religious man. And the entire floor exploded. So back to Brian. Brian is going through the 81st floor listening for the man yelling for help. And Brian's okay, but Ron decides to go back to everyone else because he couldn't breathe. So anyways, Brian finds Stanley, and there's a sheetrock wall in between them. And so, Brian pulls Stan over the wall, and, they dust each other off. And long story short, they make their way out of the building. And slightly after them, well, actually, I'll go back to Brian's coworkers. Mm-hmm. So they went back upstairs to help the woman who had came up because she was having a hard time breathing. And they all decided to just sit and wait. But Ron DiFrancesco, he was like, "I'm going to try to get down again." Fortunately, he made it out of the South Tower before it was too late. So he made it out. But anyways, back to Brian and Stanley. They went down from the 81st floor to the 78th. And they said after that, everything was nice and clear. And they ran into one guy named Jose Monero. Monero, I think that's how he pronounces it. And he was going upstairs to help people get out. But yeah, so they go downstairs and they get out. And according to them, they've been friends ever since, 21 years later. But it's just like two crazy instances had to happen for both of them to survive.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, otherwise Brian probably would have went back upstairs with his friends, and Stanley would have been trapped in the rubble, and they both would have been crushed. All right, another story. There's a guy by the name of Robert Wilson, and he worked on the 72nd floor for Morgan Stanley Bank, and he was the manager. Anyways, when everything happens, everyone comes out of his. I think it was in the South Tower, North or South, but I don't remember anymore. Mm-hmm. But anyways, though, yeah, I think it was the South. But yeah, as he's coming down the stairs, he finds a pregnant lady who's struggling to get down the stairs. And so, floor by floor, he's like coaching her, like, "Hey, give me one more floor so we can get out of here." And fortunately, they both made it out. Mm-hmm. But it's just like, think about it. If you just stopped to help somebody for too long,
yeah, it
could have turned out bad. And not that they were making a wrong decision of helping somebody,
yeah,
the situation.
That time that you use to help somebody else, you know, you're
Right.
risking, like, you're minimizing your chances of survival.
Right, exactly.
So,
Well, the thing is, they didn't know the buildings were going to fall. They didn't even know planes hit the building.
mm-hmm.
Like, very few people knew that, except for, you know, someone like Stanley who saw it,
Yeah.
and other people, like, as they were going down the stairwells, people were saying it smells like jet fuel, which I'm not familiar with the smell, but, you know. And I know you're an aerospace engineer, so you might know more than me. But.
Yeah, but I mean, I wouldn't know instantly it's jet fuel.
Right.
Like, you may smell like,
Kerosene
you know, it's
or
a
something.
fuel
Okay.
for sure. They're all hydrocarbon based, but
Mm-hmm. I gotcha. One more heroic story, and then we'll go on to something else. A man by the name of William Rodriguez. He was a janitor who cleaned the North Tower, right? So his job was to clean 102 floors, I think it was, every day. Yeah, the
That's a lot of
emergency
floors.
exits. Yeah, like every floor, every staircase. Yep, it was his job to clean that. So on 9/11, he actually was going to call off work. And so his boss, I know his first name was Anthony. I can't pronounce his last name. It's something like South Telemachia or something. Yeah, I know. It's a crazy last name. I've seen it spelled out. It's wild. But yeah, so his boss, Anthony, really needs you. And Willie being late that day saved his life. Because most days he got to work at 8 a.m. and he would go up to the 106th floor. Yeah, so there's a restaurant up on the 106th floor called Windows of the World.
mm-hmm.
And that's where a lot of his friends worked. You know, he was a Hispanic guy, and they had a very large Hispanic kitchen base, I guess you could call it. Or the cooks were, you know, mainly Hispanic. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyways, though, so Anthony's like, hey, we really need you to come in. Nobody wants to cover 102 floors to clean, you know, which is wild. And he would do it every day. It's crazy to think about. But anyways, excuse me. But anyways, though, so he goes in late and he goes straight to the basement. That's where the office was, where they would meet before work. And what he recounts was hearing a boom in the basement, and then a few seconds later, hearing a boom above them being the plane. So, yeah, that sounds suspicious, right? It sounds like there was something else going on, possibly, but...
It does, yeah.
So after that happens, a guy named Felipe David, I think he was a Honduran guy,
Mm-hmm.
he was downstairs, he runs upstairs, there's skin hanging off of him, and he's saying, explosion, explosion. I don't think his English was too good,
Yeah.
but he was saying, explosion, explosion. And so he basically explained that the elevator had exploded. So, you know, Willie and a couple other people, they wrapped him in blankets or towels or something, and they got him out. And so while everybody's outside, they look up at the building, and they can see the building smoking. And so he's like, oh my God, something happened at the Windows of the World. He's thinking his friends are in danger. And so he goes back in the building, and he's like, I got to find a way upstairs to help them. Before he gets upstairs, him and another guy hear people in an elevator screaming for help. And it was a service elevator, and it was a painter and I think a delivery person. They were stuck, and the elevator was filling up with water. So they ran and found them like the longest the longest ladder they could find, and they got them out of the service elevator before, you know, they drowned, of course.
Yeah, yeah.
So they go back outside. Willie's like, I gotta go back in. And his boss, Anthony, which he has an interview on YouTube as well, he confirmed this. His boss was like, no, you know, we got to get everybody together. We got to keep everybody together. You know, we don't want anybody lost. We don't want anybody hurt. Willie's like, no, I'm helping my friends. So at that point in time, a Port Authority officer, real quick, the Port Authority, they were like the police force for the Twin Towers, or like the World Trade Center complex. But yeah, David Lim was his name. He was a Port Authority officer, and he went to Willie and said, hey, Willie, do you have the key? Now, by that, he meant, do you have the master key to open the doors of the building?
Mm-hmm.
And long story short, Willie Rodriguez had an accident 4 years prior to that, and he sued the building, or I guess the World Trade Center, to get a key to any door so he wouldn't be stuck. I guess how that went was he had got hurt while he was cleaning the stairwells, and he didn't have a way out, and his back was messed up or something. Either way, he won the lawsuit, and he was the only person there with the key because the other 3 people ran. It's like everything happened, and they just left. They didn't make sure nothing was okay. They didn't make sure anyone needed the key, pretty much, or their keys. So David Lim was like, Willie, do you got the key? The firefighters can't get to the elevators. They're going to have to take the stairs. because the firefighters were going to use their, I guess the firemen have a fire key, and that brings the elevator straight to them. But the elevators weren't working, of course.
Right.
So basically, they all went up the stairs. They had to take the stairs, all the equipment, 80 to 100 kilos of stuff. Or no, what's it, 40 to 50?
Kilos?
No, it's probably 40 to 50 kilos.
So about 100 pounds.
Yeah. And so, Willie and David Lim are leading the firefighters up the stairs, and every few stairs, they're using the key to open the door. I guess with a Class A building, not all of the doors open up coming into the stairwell, and I guess that was done to prevent fires from spreading through the building in case a fire happened, less oxygen getting to the fire. So they made it up roughly 33 floors, and they hear a crazy rumble. That was the South Tower coming down, and they were in the North Tower, which I probably should have said. Anyways, though. But yeah, so they're going through the North Tower, 33rd floor, everything shakes, and that was the South Tower coming down. And so, they start to freak out, and they tell Willie, hey, go ahead and get out of here, you've done enough. And so Willie wanted to keep going up, but they just were like really insistent on him leaving. And so they were like, hey, help this guy down. And there was a paraplegic guy named Ed Boyer, and Willie and some other people, firefighters, are helping him down, and David Lim too. Anyway, so they get him down to the ground level, and they go to leave, and the building starts to shake. That's the North Tower coming down. So Willie runs, he hides under a fire truck. Yeah, I know, right? It's crazy. Yeah. And he survives. So they get the fire truck, or they get him from under the fire truck after the dust settles. Mm-hmm. And instead of going home, he puts on a safety jacket and starts to help clear the rubble. That's one heck of a morning.
I mean, you'd think you're ready to go home.
Right. But no, he decides, hey, I'm going to help as many people as I can. And that's crazy. Also, I'm going to leave links in the descriptions if you want to see any of these interviews, because I know them all by heart pretty much. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's pretty crazy. So, on to a different topic about 9/11.
Okay.
A lot of people say that once 9/11 happened, a lot of Americans came together. Do you remember that? Or what is your thoughts on that?
From what I remember, no. Not saying it didn't happen.
Right.
I just didn't witness it.
Right.
But I mean, we would have been...
Well, yeah, 8 and 10 years old. Yeah, so... Yeah, I remember people talking about it, but I didn't see it because, I'm a 10-year-old. Yeah. I'm not really looking at it that way.
Right.
But as we know, though, of course, this sent the United States into war, which we found out later was the wrong country.
Allegedly.
Let's
say that.
Yeah, allegedly. No, it was the wrong country.
Allegedly still.
We went to the wrong country, y'all. Allegedly.
Yeah, there you go.
We know it's the wrong country. Anyways, though.
I mean, I guess you could also look at so as you may have had people come together, but there were stereotypes placed on Middle Eastern people.
It was.
Or even people who may look similar to Middle Eastern people.
Right. Yeah, anyone who wore a hijab or a burqa.
Yeah.
They went through a lot. It was unfortunate. And it shouldn't be that way, you know what I mean? Just because a group of individuals does something bad doesn't mean everyone like them is like them.
Yeah. I guess you got people in fear and out of ignorance.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. But yeah, so another thing that happened that day, of course, was a plane crashed into the Pentagon. Yeah, it made a giant loop over the Pentagon, went right over the lawn, and boom, right into the side. Mm-hmm. It was just crazy. And you're like, who would think to do this? But someone who has pure hatred in their heart would. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then the last plane crashed into Shanksville, Pennsylvania. So the story there is that the passengers, they fought back pretty much. They fought against the hijackers, and instead of crashing into what people think might have been the White House, they ended up crashing into a field in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. Mm. But a lot of negativity also came out of this entire situation, other than, of course, the main tragedy of all the people who passed away or were killed out. And they didn't pass away, they were killed. But people kind of turned on each other, like people who didn't support the war, right?
Yeah.
For example, I remember there was a story of a guy who was at a gym, and he was just saying he disagreed with the war, but he understood it. Someone reported him to the FBI. Yeah, over that, and so he got interrogated, and they let him go and everything. But still, it's just like, because someone didn't agree, you're going to report them.
Yeah, it's like during the Cold War. It's
Like that's carrying them. Yeah, exactly. Cold War, anyone who didn't agree was a commie. You're right. And it wasn't the case at all. It was people using their minds to say, hey, something's not right.
Right.
You know, just because you don't agree doesn't mean you fall into a stereotype. And then, oh my God, here was another crazy one. Which, all right, so there was a group in California, and they napped and cuddled and hugged.
I heard about that.
Yeah, and again, to each their own. And they were just a group that helped people like feel comfort in that time.
Mm-hmm.
They got infiltrated by the police of the area, and they were like, "Hey, we're gonna see what they're up to," even though they weren't up to anything. And the people of the group ended up finding out that the mysterious guy who kept coming to their meetings was a police officer under a different name, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And the only reason they found out about him was because he died in the line of duty. But it's just like, come on, man.
Yeah.
Once you see they're just a group that hug, leave them alone. They're not doing nothing malicious.
I mean, that's similar to, not to jump off topic, but
Yeah.
COINTELPRO.
Yeah.
If you remember that, I mean, they infiltrated any type of group from people who protested against the war in Vietnam.
Yeah.
I mean, pretty much everything, even animal rights.
Right.
If you name it, I mean, civil rights movements, you name it.
Yeah, you got a
They
point.
infiltrated everything. Black Panthers.
Yeah. Good point.
Yeah.
Man. It's a crazy world. But yeah, so back to 9/11 though. Of course, then, outside of that, there are some of the conspiracies. Are you familiar with any of the conspiracies?
A few.
Right, if you would.
So, alright, so the one that sticks out is with the Pentagon.
Mm-hmm.
People believe that it was hit not by a plane, but with a missile.
Right, I've heard that one.
Mainly because of the shape of the entry after the object hit it. So
Right.
Was it a missile? Was it a plane?
It was a perfect circle.
Yeah,
I
think
saw
it was
it.
like some professional pilot saying that they couldn't make that maneuver,
Right.
no matter how many times they tried it.
Now, with your background in aerospace engineering, and have you ever seen what happened to the Pentagon? It was a perfect circle before it collapsed.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think the nose of a plane could do that? Just the nose go through and nothing else?
You would, okay, so the structure is going to be weak. However, you will see some damage for sure from the wings.
Mm-hmm.
It's too big of an area.
Gotcha.
Or, I mean, it's going to be thin,
Right.
but you definitely see something.
Right. Now something.
I mean,
okay, I'm sorry.
I don't care if you're seeing like, well, it will see something before we go into a lot of details, but.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So I saw video footage and picture footage of what the Pentagon looked like before everything collapsed in, and there was just one circular hole in the building. It wasn't anything other than just going through multiple walls, but there was no wing damage.
So I'll say this: even in Akron, there has been planes that ran into houses.
Yeah.
Compare what you see from a plane.
Was it a B? Oh my God! What are the old bombers from World War II?
World War II.
Was that the B-17?
I can't remember.
But either way, one of those flew into the Empire State Building.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, it caused all kinds of damage. Though the Empire State Building did not collapse. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the Twin Towers and the way they're constructed wouldn't collapse by being hit by a plane. But that's neither here nor there. I'm getting off topic.
Yeah.
But that. Of course, there's the conspiracy about Building 7 falling. Are you familiar with that?
Yes.
All right. So in the World Trade Center complex, the buildings were numbered, and Building 7 was, I think, it was like catty-cornered compared to the Twin Towers.
Mm-hmm.
And supposedly there was a diesel fire in the basement, and that was able to bring the building down at free fall. But I remember seeing a news report where Building 7 was still standing up behind somebody, a woman, a female reporter, and you can Google this or YouTube it. And they reported the building was down, but it was still up behind her. So that was strange. I don't know if she was standing in front of like a green screen or something.
Yeah.
So, it could, of course, there could easily be an explanation.
Mm-hmm.
Another one, and of course the biggest one, there were no planes. That's completely false. There were multiple people in the buildings who saw the plane, like Stanley Prayaneth. He saw the plane coming directly at him, and he was on the floor where it hit, and he saw pieces of the plane in his floor. So I don't think you can outdo that. I don't think you can outdo that kind of evidence.
Probably not.
Nah. Oh, what else do we got? Oh, the government. Everyone says the government was behind it. The government, and there are very coincidental things about what happened on 9/11. I can't say with any certainty what did or didn't happen outside of we lost a lot of American lives that day. And probably non-American lives too that day, because I know a lot of the people of Windows of the World were undocumented workers. But yeah, it was just, I don't know, a crazy, terrible day. The aftermath was awful. It really changed a lot of things.
Yeah, it did. Question though, with the Pentagon, when the plane ran into it, was it claimed that the wings had already broken off in some type of way, sheared off?
Not to my knowledge. All right, so what I remember is they said the plane knocked over 2 telephone poles, or 2 light poles actually, and then ran into the building. It stayed parallel with the ground somehow, and ran into the building, and somehow the jet engine was not in the building. It was on the ground. Yeah.
Look, I won't say nothing for sure, but it sounds suspicious.
Yeah, like it wasn't even embedded in the building. You would think if anything is going through that building, it's the jet engines.
Oh yeah.
Because what are they made out of? Titanium? What else?
The outside shrouding is going to be something light,
like aluminum.
But you still got your compressor blades. You have your combustion system. Your annual. We have everything related to your combustion system. You have your turbines. You have a lot of metal parts.
Gotcha.
And it's heavy, but you would think if it got launched off, it's going
right. It's going to go straight through at several hundred miles an hour.
Yeah.
All right. Question for you. So something I've heard a lot is when the planes hit the Twin Towers, the jet fuel all burned up instantaneously on the explosion. Is that how jet fuel works?
So jet fuel will combust once it vaporizes or atomizes. So it can happen 2 ways. If you have jet fuel, and let's say, for example, if you just put a torch. So if you have jet fuel, the way that jet fuel actually burn, it has to either vaporize or atomize.
Okay.
With oxygen.
Okay.
So 2 ways that could happen is you have the jet fuel, it sprays into small little droplets mixed with your oxygen or your air. Then that can ignite.
Okay.
The other way is if it gets really hot, it becomes to vaporize by itself.
Okay.
Once it gets to a certain temperature, then it can combust.
Okay.
So that's the 2 ways that it could burn. So if you just had a puddle of or a jar of jet fuel and you put a torch straight into it, it will not catch on fire
unless it's atomized.
Yep, it's only the gases that are flammable, not the actual liquid.
Gotcha. Okay. So
go, keep going.
I was just gonna say, what do you think it would have been like to be down there? Like, because I know there were people who went to the Twin Towers to see what was going on, but I don't know. Let's just say you were somebody in the towers who made it out. What do you think you would think? What would be your thoughts? What would be your, I don't know.
That's really hard to put yourself in that situation. It will definitely be, it's beyond chaotic, but it'll be completely unreal. You would, from how I would imagine it, it'll seem dreamlike. Because this can't happen. Right. But I guess maybe in our first world country, we forget just how bad things can get.
You got a point.
Yeah. I remember, I'm not saying they was right for saying this, but it was some Middle Eastern person, and they looked at 9/11 as that's just another day in our country.
Actually, there's an interview, or not an, well, yeah, it was an interview. A woman who survived the tower. She had a Middle Eastern roommate, and I'm not going to put her name out there, put anybody on blast, but for anyone who wants to find the interview, it's on the 9/11 tribute page on YouTube. But she got out of the tower, of course, went back to her apartment, and she had a Middle Eastern roommate. I think she was Syrian. And she talked to her roommate and said, "Hey, do you see what's going on out there?" And her roommate just said, "Oh yeah, this happens every day in my country," kind of nonchalantly. And of course, she took offense to it because people just died.
Yeah.
But of course, that's everyday life for the Syrian woman,
Yeah.
or it was everyday life in her country.
Yeah,
Or is.
It's something like that becomes normalized.
Right.
I know you become, especially like if you're looking at America, there's probably little sympathy
Mm-hmm.
or empathy, either one,
Okay.
for what had happened. I mean, for us, it's like horrible, but to them, it's like we see this on a daily, if not weekly basis, probably.
Right. And they're wherever they're from.
Mm-hmm.
But But I think that's enough of the somber stuff, though, on 9/11. But, it was a really, really rough day for everyone in America, but especially New York City.
Yeah.
They lost 343 members of their fire department and police force. Everyone doing their best to help. And then so many thousands of people helped to clean up the pile afterwards. And even till today, people are getting cancer. Like they said, the pile was safe to clean up just with the regular masks.
No.
And yeah, exactly. A lot of people are getting cancer now from that.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, they had government officials down there in hazmat suits and rebreathers.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just, I don't know, it's just a really bad day in the history of 9/11.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's been 21 years.
Yeah.
Almost, coming up on it.
It's not to compare, of course, because it's uncomparable, but it's kind of like Pearl Harbor for people who were around in, December 7th, 1941. That was probably the worst attack on America until this. And the only reason I say this is worse than that is because it was civilian.
Yeah.
Not that military life is any less important or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
There's still attacks on America. There's still American lives lost,
With Pearl Harbor, weren't there warnings that there was going to be an attack?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I know there were warnings supposedly that went to Roosevelt, and it was Roosevelt, and it was a junior radar operator, I believe it was,
Mm-hmm.
who had spotted the planes coming at them, and I think he was told they were birds by one of the senior officers or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but we'll get to a Pearl Harbor show in December.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. It's just a really terrible day in the history of America, and hopefully people don't forget it though.
One day, I think people will. Just like Pearl
Just
Harbor.
like Pearl Harbor.
Ask a random person, when did Pearl Harbor happen?
Right. And you ask me, December 7th, 1941.
Yeah.
You ask your standard person, they'll just say around World War II if they know.
Yep. The crazy thing is there are young adults now who were born after.
Yeah.
And it's weird to say, wow, you actually didn't witness.
Right. This chaotic time.
Yeah.
Right. That's just how time goes, man.
Yeah.
It's just how time goes. Let me see here. All right, cool. Sorry. But yeah, you know what? I think we can wrap that up on 9/11. But then again, hang on, one more thing. Airports got way more strict.
I forgot about that. Yeah.
Yep. Before 9/11, apparently people could go and wave goodbye to people in the terminal.
Mm-hmm.
Watch them leave and everything like that. Nowadays, if you don't got a ticket, you ain't getting in. Which I'm glad it's like that, because not just anybody should be able to walk into an airport anyways, but just that shows how vulnerable we were.
Yeah, we never thought that it would happen.
Yeah. Oh, one more conspiracy and then we can head out.
Sure.
So September 11th, 2001, there were war games going on. And those war games, the simulation was if America got attacked by hijackers. And so when the police contacted the military and said, hey, we have a hijacking going on, they were like, is this real world or is this a part of the simulation? And there were only 4 jet planes that were there to defend the entire East Coast, or 4 fighter jets. So I'm sure there was confusion, because I guess you would wonder, hey, what happens in this situation? Do you shoot down the planes or do you try to negotiate? And of course there was a lot of misinformation and everything. And then there were people who were in positions of power and they were told to stand down. or they were told not to do anything, or they were told to leave.
Yeah.
At least according to their interviews. I'll put it that way.
Now, let's take another step, because it's two things I actually want to ask you.
Mm-hmm.
So, from what I heard, I don't know if it's true or false.
Right.
Weren't there some officials being told not to be in New York?
Supposedly.
Allegedly. Not sure if that's
like,
true.
all right, so supposedly Condoleezza Rice contacted Colin Powell and told him not to go to New York.
Right. Allegedly.
Allegedly.
Yeah.
Actually, do you remember Dick Gregory?
Yep.
Yep, he was a comedian, civil rights leader, activist. Yeah, he was told not to go to New York by some of his sources because something was supposed to happen. And there was also a female FBI agent who had been investigating one of the pilots, and she tried to get people to look into it, and they didn't listen to her until afterwards. And if I'm correct, it cost her job. In the FBI.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. What was the other thing?
Other thing was, according to Eric Snowden.
Right.
So, I don't think you ever read his book.
I have not.
He mentioned how when he was working,
Mm-hmm.
I guess when he was younger, for the NSA,
Yeah.
they was told to basically just go home.
That's not the only time I heard that. I've heard interviews where people working in airports were told just to go home. It was a security agency, and they were told to just go home and not do anything about what was going on.
Yeah. But you would think with the NSA, you would think that would be the most important,
Right.
organization to be like working at that moment.
Right. Trying to find out what's going on.
Yeah, because otherwise it's like nobody knows anything.
Right.
But who knows what else played into that?
Right. Absolutely. I mean, it could have been something completely different. Like, hey, there's nothing you can do right now. I don't know. Again, I don't want to speculate too much. This is all
right.
just speculation anyways. There's no proof of any of it.
So we have limited knowledge. It's just...
Yeah. Just things we've heard from, supposed first-hand sources. So, I don't know. But yeah, man, it was... I don't know. All right, one more question and then we can head out.
Sure.
What do you think is so intriguing about things like this? Like, I know a lot of people, like myself, will go through every interview, will do a lot of research on this topic, and try to figure out as much as they can about it. Like this, the Titanic, Pearl Harbor, major disasters. What do you think it is about them that draw people?
I think these are once, I won't even say once in a century, at least for, the U.S. They're very rare.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to say it this way, like, for, not you, but for some other people, it's very possible that, they have a very normal, simple life, right? So when they get the chance...
I was going to say, I do not have a normal, simple life.
But yeah, some people, it's the reason why some people stick to sports so hard,
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's a whole nother topic, though.
Oh my God. They make their life about a sports team.
Exactly.
Like, they connect their own success to the... We'll talk about it another time.
Yeah. It's a whole nother, avenue. But I think it's something that doesn't happen often. Mm-hmm. And because it's outside of the norm, people are just drawn to it. It's just like why people are attracted to pseudosciences.
Right.
Astrology.
Right.
And it's like...
What sign are you?
Yeah.
And people don't even know that the constellation signs aren't the same now as they were when they came up with the constellations. Like, someone who's a Libra might really be a Taurus.
Easily.
I don't know how much the stars have moved, but I know that the constellations have moved.
You think even still, you think the arrangement of the stars when you're born,
right,
is going to make a difference with your personality and
everything
else? No.
We'll talk about that another time, bro.
A whole nother,
we got to get back on 9/11. And was there anything else you wanted to say? Any other questions?
I think we covered a good amount.
I think so too.
Yeah. Hopefully we don't get kicked off YouTube. Yeah.
But no, there's some wild stuff out here. We'll be all right.
We said allegedly for stuff.
We did stay. Allegedly gets you out scot-free.
Yeah.
And if it don't, oh well. But it's all good. Huh?
We tried.
We tried. Yeah. So, 9/11, of course, was a horrible time in our country. And those of us who witnessed it, those who survived it, will never forget it. And we'll remember how it changed our lives and our country forever. And hopefully one day we get to a world where things like that don't have to happen. You know, people don't even think, hey, let's run some planes into a building.
Yeah. You know, I do have to mention one thing. I remember back when I was taking undergrad classes, I was taking a statics class. And it was 9/11. So we're going around, everybody's like maybe 150 students, maybe even up to 200.
Yeah.
But we were told to write what we remember down about 9/11. So everybody put their stuff in. And the professor gather them, and no, we all had to pass it around to some random person.
Okay.
And we went and read it out loud. Everything was good. You know, one person mentioned how they lost their father and all this other stuff.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
okay.
big stuff. But one person decided to have some type of ignorant comment. I won't even say what it was. I barely remember, but it was so bad that the professor just stopped and told everybody to leave.
It was that bad.
It was that bad. I don't think they thought
Wow.
that it would be read out loud, but the fact that they would say that.
The fact that someone's mindset is like, I'm going to make light of this. I'm going to make a joke out of it.
Straight ignorant, yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah, it was like, really. Everybody just looked around like, who wrote this?
Who would think to do that?
Yeah.
That's horrible. I don't know. People are weird, man. But yeah, hopefully one day the world doesn't have to experience any kind of tragedies like that. But I think we'll call that an episode, though, bro.
Yeah, sounds good.
But yeah, on this September 11th, hopefully we can all reflect on not just the bad, but the good we have. You know, appreciate who we do have today while we have them. Because, again, everyone on 9/11, you know, they had plans for that day. You know, it was people, you know, they knew what they were going to do when they were going to go home. You know, they told their wives, their husbands, their kids, hey, we're going to do this later, we're going to do that later.
Yep.
So I guess one thing we can take from it, you know, appreciate who you got and what you got. Because you never know, you know, what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Especially these days, you know, with all the school shootings and grocery stores, everything. But we'll talk about that another time.
Can't get too comfortable.
Yeah, you can't get too comfortable.
Yeah.
That's unfortunate. But anyway, though, YouTube, thanks for joining us. And make sure you get live.